It's July of 2009. I've just taken a position as athletic director in an all-girls school on the west side of Los Angeles. I'm excited. The sports program was in desperate need of a turnaround, and I love projects like that. My daughter, Sienna, would be an incoming ninth grader. And what 14-year-old girl doesn't want to go to an all-girls high school where her dad works? Now, if only I knew whether or not the phone on my desk was hooked up. I'm a Venice, California-born, Los Angeles-based sports fan, one that has played, coached, announced, and promoted sports my whole life. My love affair with sports started in my own backyard and has led me to this podcast. Thanks to the support of the Amateur Athletic Union in East Bay, I'm excited to bring you Sports Stories with Denny Lennon. Hello, sports historians, and who you ask was on the other end of that phone? None other than our guest today, the athletic director of the top high school sports program in the country, Rock Pillsbury of Sierra Canyon School in Chatsworth, California. First, though, hello to my producer, the Western League most valuable player in basketball while at Venice High School, also the 10 and under national champion from the AAU Beach Volleyball Tour. Marley Rice is in the 7428.
Yes, luckily those are my claim to fames, nothing more. Welcome everybody back to another episode. I just want to remind you all that along with this audio, we also have a YouTube where we have original footage and pictures that go along with this. It's really kind of cool, and I put a lot of effort into this, so I'd love if you would go watch it and write a review for us, and subscribe to our YouTube and subscribe to our Apple Podcast as well.
Yep, the website's at sportstoriespodcast.com. Doing the best we can to populate social media and that website.
And by we mean I am doing the best we can.
That's right. And we were at Cal State Northridge to watch the boys basketball team for Sierra Canyon play. They have too big of a population going into their gym to even play in their own home gym, so they had to rent out Cal State Northridge. We also caught a girls soccer game, and so there's some good footage there.
We got to sit sideline.
So that school, Sierra Canyon, it rings a bell, right? Yes. It is the school that seems to win a state championship in either boys or girls basketball or football, volleyball, soccer, you name it. The boys basketball program this year has the sons of LeBron James and Dwayne Wade play for it. And in the past years, they've had several high-profile athletes and entertainers' children attend, or they did attend. There's a great article. It's written by Reeves Wiedemann about the school and how it was founded, along with other celebrities involved. It was published in the February 17th edition of New York Magazine, and it's available online as well, and that link will be on our website. And then some of you may be saying, forget the school, what about that name, Rock Pillsbury? I get you. I thought the same when I answered that call. Rock Pillsbury, can a name be an oxymoron? Rock implied something totally different than Pillsbury. I quickly snapped out of my own brain to say hello to a man that was genuine and really nice. He explained that our schools were in the same conference and that if I needed anything to give him a call. And he meant it. We've been friends since that time. Rock's been the same guy on the way up to the top as he was when he started at Sierra Canyon when the high school was just starting. And by up, I am not exaggerating when I say that they are the top high school program in the country. Consider the high level of play and talent in Los Angeles, the surrounding region, and the state. Close to 600 schools compete in the CIF Southern Section alone, where in some sports there are 10 divisions of plays. The highest level is the Open Division. Sierra Canyon, in all sports in the last 13 years, has won 12 state championships and 14 sectional titles. That's ridiculous. Last season in basketball, both their boys and girls team won the state Open Division. That's the first time that ever happened. As we go to record this podcast, both teams, both boys and girls basketball, are a legitimate threat to repeat as state champions in the Open Division. This is the era of super teams in high school, and Sierra Canyon is blazing the trail. This year's boys team played in 8 states in front of huge crowds. They've been on national TV this season more than some NBA franchises. They have several top prospects, including 6'7" Zaire Williams, the top uncommitted senior in the nation, and Brandon Boston, another 6'7" standout that's committed to Kentucky. Williams and Boston generally combine for like 35 points and 30 rebounds, while Bronny James and Zaire Wade combined for 6.5 million followers on Instagram. As I mentioned, the girls' teams are equally dominant and equally supported by the school. We attended a girls' soccer game, and as I stood next to Rock and took notice of who appeared to be the team's best player, Rock indicated that was Jim Brown's daughter, Morgan, who at that exact moment weaved her way through the defenders like Brown might have done in football or lacrosse, and then she drilled a ball in the back of the net for a goal. I'm not sure if I was more impressed at her athleticism or the fact that Jim Brown had a high school-age daughter. Jim Brown, you may remember, was featured on episode 8 of Sports Stories. And some of you might be focusing not on the sports or the celebrities or the athletic director's name, but on the fact that the school is in Chatsworth. You know, where the Spawn Ranch is. Okay, all you Manson weirdos, go back to your corner of the internet and disparage Vincent Bugliosi or whoever it is and whatever you do. The name Chatsworth is a reference to the Chatsworth House in England, and that name was first recorded in 1888 when Stephen Grover Cleveland was in office, our 22nd and 24th president. Yes, look it up, only president to serve 2 non-consecutive terms. Chatsworth, then a modest population, today that number rests somewhere above 41,000. The area has grown quite a bit since 1888. And so it was some 120 years later, a maverick from Dallas, Rock Pillsbury, landed in Chatsworth to lead the Sierra Canyon School Trailblazers to the top spot in high school athletics. He's a leader that cares about equity, that gives of himself and school resources to boys and girls sports, lower and upper schools. He's a guy that wants to help his students and help others like he did for me. The great coach and teacher John Wooden spoke to this.
Help others. There's no greater joy than helping others. I think everyone in here would admit, if you stop and think, the greatest joy you can have is to do something for someone else without any thought of something in return. That gives you real joy.
Now that I've dropped Sienna Jamay, King James, D. Wade, New York Magazine, Zaire Williams, Brandon Boston, Bronny James, Zaire Wade, Jim Brown, Morgan Brown, George Spawn, Vincent Bugliosi, Uncle Jumbo, and Coach, just like the school he leads, he's solid as a rock. From the 7428 studio in the shadow of LAX, here's my interview with the athletic director of Sierra Canyon School, Rock Pillsbury. Yeah.
There we go. See if I got it. Oh, the backboard. I'll clean up one
You
more
can
time.
put it back with the layup if you want.
Bam.
Last one, then you can.
Dang, you just made that first one.
Make it, okay.
Or you can go all the way in for layup if you want.
A little flat, it works.
Bam.
Hook 'em horns.
So, I was recounting recently that this is literally my first day on the job at Archer, and I didn't even know if my phone worked on my desk, and because I got in there, so I set up in the office, and I thought it was like just somebody internally calling, and it was you, and you said, hey, I started in this conference not long ago. Just here in case you need any, and welcome to the league. And I was like, this guy's cool.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Started a good friendship.
Yeah,
Wish you're still in the league.
yeah. Well, actually having some fun doing this because
Good.
It's what's kind of cool is getting an opportunity to meet people in all kind of different disciplines of sport that are doing different things and succeeding at their levels, and so getting a little wider view.
But what's just what we deal with.
Than just what we deal with. But what kind of trips me out is your world now is crossing over into the scope of all the sports. I mean, when you think about your guys' social media output and some of the athletes you have and some of the success you've had, you're gaining as much attention.
We've come a long way.
Heck, no doubt.
Even since I met you. Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's go back a little bit. Were you born in Texas?
Yeah. As I showed the Hook 'em Horns, I'm a Texan.
Yeah.
And,
Where?
Dallas.
Okay.
I joke with people, friends, when I say that I feel like I brought a little bit of Texas out to L.A.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
In that, there's a way we did it in Texas, and I always felt like if I learned from each school where I worked. Sometimes what I want to do, and sometimes what I didn't want to do. But when I came out here, that's what I tried to do.
What brought your parents to Texas?
I think just work. My mom is a Texan.
Okay.
I'm mixed. I'm half Yankee and half Texan. So
okay.
my dad's from New Jersey, and he came down. His parents moved to Texas. He came down after the service and just kind of lived there and worked there.
Okay.
And then my mom grew up in the Panhandle of Texas, which is kind of northwest Texas, kind of up high. We have a panhandle like other states do, and then came down to. She went to Texas Tech. I forgive her for that, and then she was working in Dallas. My parents met in Dallas.
They met in Dallas. All right. What do you remember like your elementary and middle school years? Did you play a lot of sports?
Yeah, I did. I started at a independent school, which ties in. The reason I mention it, it ties into why I'm here in a way. I started at independent school and then went to a public school and went to high school at a school called Highland Park in Dallas. A lot of people know it from Clayton Kershaw around here. Went to school there, but we had some others. Matthew Stafford, Chris Young. Yeah, it was way back to Doak Walker days. It's a great high school that supports athletics and high achievers.
What sports did you like?
I was a basketball player. That's not the greatest, but that's what. It's funny. I was just picking up a basketball. I've been doing this for 31 years, but that's what got me into this was basketball.
Okay.
I played through high school, did not play in college. Played a little, intramural ball in college. But after college, I had a business degree, or I still have it, from University of Texas in finance. And then I went to work in the real estate business for a great company called Lincoln Property Company.
Okay.
And I was a financial analyst and then leased shopping centers, but I wasn't happy,
Oh, yeah.
I just thought, what could I do if I could do anything, if I really loved it and I wanted to be a coach. So it kind of went back to the basketball that I had some really excellent coaches when I was young, from the middle school with Kellis White to.
I like when people drop because sometimes. I know you enjoy coaching middle school just like you do.
I loved it. I did it a number of years.
You did a number of years.
It's actually very fun.
I always liked that about you. I knew you were in charge, overall, but you would take on those middle schoolers.
I did some middle school basketball. Did middle school football.
Who did you say was a coach? Coach
His
White?
name was Kellis White. He was a fantastic coach. He kind of got slotted, unfortunately, in Dallas at a middle school. He would have been a great high school coach, but he was working where he wanted to work, and he stayed in the middle school level. And then I had a great JV coach named Tom Shelton, and then a head coach named Bo Snowden.
Nice.
And they were great men. I had some other men, called Don Richardson, who was a football coach, and Orville Jones, or we call him OJ. But these great men had and I have a dad who's, was around, but boys and girls, when you're just a sponge when you're in middle school, especially that 7, 8, 9, those years. You're a sponge, and people other than your parents are really important to you.
Very important, right? And you're spending a lot of time when you're at school all day long. So sometimes you're bumping into your coaches. They might be
you might have had
class.
for PE, or they coach you, but they just have a power. And I've never forgotten that. And I still have. I've had parents still to this day. They'll come up to me and said, thank you so much for being. I just came back from Spain with 30 kids, and it's that's why I got into this 31 years ago.
You're in the financial game, or leasing those properties or whatever, and there might be a return there, but that's a spiritual return you get. I've always said that to coaches. It's like you get a spiritual return on that investment later, and it feels good.
I have said it for many, many interviews and many, trying to mentor younger coaches, is making kids feel good about themselves. And it can't be fake. It's got to be real. If you see something that they do in a game, or
that's right.
I had a girl hit a shot in basketball the other day at Campbell Hall, and she doesn't play all the time. And so the next time I saw her, I was like, man, that was a sweet shot. Right. And, so it's real. You just remember real things that happen, or a goalie makes a great save, or a behind-the-back pass.
No doubt.
And even if they do it badly, you can go, what were you thinking? But at least they know that you know who they are, they know that you're paying attention, and that you care.
That makes the biggest difference.
It's huge.
It's everything. Now, you went to U of T.
We don't say it that way. We say the University of Texas.
Oh,
yeah. There's
I
TU.
see.
That's Tennessee. So we get some variations of orange.
You went
so let's be real careful. We're the burnt orange. We're the burnt
where
orange.
Bevo
Correct.
runs out on the field.
Right.
The Fred Akers years, maybe.
I was there. That's interesting. Yeah, I was
Okay.
there 80 to 84, and he was our coach.
Okay.
So we were okay.
You had one really good year, I think.
Yeah, we lost
lost
at
in
Georgia in the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah.
It could have worked out. But, at that stage, that's a whole nother stage of my life. And I talked to people about it, and it ended up my daughter is doing the same thing. I was an athlete, and then when I went to college, I had to figure out who I was not being an athlete. And so you kind of have to recreate yourself.
Yeah.
And so I joined a fraternity, was involved in the fraternity, and later ended up being president of my fraternity. But it was different from athletics.
When I love college football, I love the regionality of it, the traditions of it, and everything. And so, but when I was announcing for women's pro beach volleyball, we did something in Austin at maybe Zilker Park, I think it was. Anyways, so at night we parked our trucks, I think, somewhere on that campus, and I hopped the fence with a volleyball and played catch on that field.
Yeah,
and to
it's
this day, I
beautiful.
still remember it because it's such a legendary field.
Yeah, DKR, Daryl Royal. I don't know but it's called DKR.
That's the best. And then I saw that you went to Boston University. Was that later, or was that directly after?
No,
UT?
so that's I'll go back to the Greenhill. And Greenhill, which is an independent school like Archer and the ones we around here, Campbell Hall, Viewpoint, Brentwood, all those. So in Texas, and there's some real breaks in my life we'll probably get through, but in Texas, to teach in public school, you must have a certificate. Well, I didn't have a certificate, but in private schools, like out here, you can teach or coach without one. So I went to 3 independent schools in Dallas. I went to ESD, St. Mark's, and Greenhill, and basically made a pitch, just like you do in the real estate business, of saying, hey, this is what I'm thinking about. This is what I want to do. Will you give me a break? Will you give me a shot to come for 1 year?
I see.
I don't need you to pay me anything. I just need insurance.
Okay.
And I'll teach as many classes as you want. I'll coach as many teams as you want. But if you like me, will you pay for my master's degree? I realize that I've got to demonstrate that an education degree is important. I'll go back and get my master's.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
a gentleman took me up on it. A guy named Phil Foote, who was the headmaster, who I had known at Greenhill. Remember, circle back, I had gone to Greenhill through 6th grade or through 5th grade.
Okay.
And he had been the middle school director at the time. David Foote, the Brentwood soccer coach.
Sure.
It's his dad.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And so he called me back and gave me a shot.
Okay.
And I got hired, and I was a quarterback's coach for football, and I was a middle school football coach, and I coached JV basketball and assistant varsity, and I did track, and they wore me out.
Private schools are kind of like Catholic schools. They see you're good at one thing. It's like, now you're doing, we can do you for this season.
But we taught, it was like I taught several grades, some lower, middle, and upper, and then that May I took off for Boston and did BU in 2 summers.
Oh, wow.
I knocked it out in 2 summers.
Oh, nice.
16 hours a summer.
What did I see you were at SMU?
I had a cup of coffee in the college ranks.
Okay. What'd you do there?
My title was like, I forget what it was called, but it may be on there. But basically, I was the grad assistant, but I wasn't even that.
Okay.
I basically helped organize practices. I edited film for basketball. Edited film. I traveled with the team. There were some. I didn't go out and recruit. You have a limited number of coaches can go out. It was basically an exploratory year to see if I wanted to do it. I continued to teach at Highland Park.
Okay.
I just taught all my classes in the morning, and I coached football in the morning. And then at 1 o'clock, I would go over to SMU, and I worked till 9 or 10 at night. And I traveled and did a whole thing. At the end of the year, I realized it wasn't really for me. I didn't feel like I was making as much of a difference with the kids as you. They're kind of grown men. They have their own agendas. It was to me, that's more about the money and making money, and it was.
Did you learn something about at least high level?
Oh yeah, I think everything you do,
level?
if you're smart, you always try to learn. And but everything is not always what you expect. We had to go wash the uniforms.
Mm-hmm.
If we played at Colorado State on a Thursday night and we're in Vegas, we got to go wash the uniforms on I guess
Right.
we played Thursday, on Friday, wash them to play on Saturday. There's just nuances. Or I remember, I was in Stanford. We were opened up in Stanford, and one of our players, we had chicken with verde sauce on top of it, and he wouldn't eat it because it had green stuff on him. But we got a game the next night at Stanford. So I told him, I said, hey, hop in my van. We'll go buy McDonald's on the way back. And we had to get you to eat.
That's exactly what you do. Yeah.
But that's what you do. You want to try to win games. But I was like,
What got you over to Las Vegas? The Meadow School? Is that
the
because
Meadow School, that was my first stint as being an athletic director.
Okay.
So I was at Highland Park for a number of years. I got sick. I had a brain tumor probably 2 years before. It was actually 2 years before I left.
Wow.
And so I missed several months, 8 months. And when you're sitting around thinking,
Sure.
especially if you know me, I'm always thinking, I'm always trying to figure out a way to get an advantage.
Sure.
I had kind of the epiphany of like, nobody says you have to stay in Texas your whole life.
Okay.
And if you want to ever be an athletic director, if you want to work a number of years, because you can see I knew I was going to have gray hair, and I have young kids. And I'm
Or
50,
no hair, like that's the route I went.
I was like, I want to work a number of years. And so I came up with an idea. Having been at Green Hill and St. Mark's, I knew independent schools.
Okay.
So I took a day off and flew to Boston, to the NAIS in Boston, and interviewed around, because I thought if I could use my expertise as a coach and as a teacher to help get my kids an education, then that's winning. I'm winning on two sides. And so what I did is I convinced, even having been out of independent schools for 12 years, met this nice man named Bob Rischke, who's now in Atlanta, and they hired me to be their athletic director.
This is
in
back
Las
up
Vegas.
a little bit. The brain tumor. That's got to be scary.
It was at the time. It was probably more scary for my wife, because I think we had a 3-year-old and 2 1-year-olds at the time.
Okay.
And so, I'm going in for surgery. And it was not, when you hear brain surgery, there's a lot of different brain surgeries. Mine was, I went in underneath my lip, top lip, and went up in. It's like changing the oil from the bottom.
Okay.
And they tore some stuff out. But
Wow.
it's not the end of the world. It wasn't cancerous.
Okay.
It's all good.
And then they got you to the Meadow School, so now you learned how to be an athletic director.
I started to.
How to coach coaches?
The Meadows was a different school, but it was like we said earlier, you learn everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't perfect. As we kind of stepped into a tough situation, my headmaster was kind of fighting upstream to try to change the Meadow School into more of an independent school, and then he got fired in December. So I moved my whole family out there, and then he gets fired in December.
Never good.
No.
Not for the,
And not when he hired me.
Yep.
And the upper school director resigned in protest. So the 2 people I met in Boston are now gone. But, to Meadows' credit, they were fantastic. We kind of cut a deal where, look, they didn't really want me because that was his plan. They wanted to go do it their way. So we cut a plan where I basically finished the winter season, and after the winter season I was done, and I could go look for a job, and they helped pay. And so they did a stand-up job. They paid for me to go to Denver and to go to the NIS again. So here I'm back at NIS again, and that's where my life changed. That's where I met Jim Scrumbus, the headmaster at Sierra Canyon.
At Sierra Canyon. Now, did you return to like Wiley, Texas or something?
Correct.
So that's like near Plano, maybe?
It's up north near Plano. It's east of Plano.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you went back there and then to the Denver.
Jim was interested in me, but I needed a job for my wife as well, and they hadn't finished their upper school yet, and they were still kind of drawing on napkins, and they weren't quite ready for me.
Oh, okay.
So I said, look, but we stayed in touch, and so I went back to Wiley, and I was a golf coach at Wiley, and my wife worked at Hockaday, which is the all-girls school, kind of like Archer. You probably heard of Hockaday in Dallas. Fantastic.
Yep.
And she worked there, and then all of a sudden we get the call from Jim that
they're going to be launching an upper school.
That they have a position for my wife and for me, and that they'd like for us to interview for it, and we got it.
Now that's what's really interesting. Okay, so you met Scrumbus, and so you had that relationship, and you built that relationship, and then Sierra Canyon was originally like
it was a K through 8 school,
camp or something.
Well, yeah, it
Way
started
back
as a
when?
camp.
And then
in the
became a
early
K through
70s,
eight, yeah.
and then started as a K through 8 school in 1978.
Okay.
And so it existed as a K through 8 school for a number of years, probably 20, 30 years. And then they
Yeah.
decided that, kids would go off to Harvard Westlake or Campbell Hall or Chaminade.
Why wouldn't we keep them?
And then why don't we start an upper school?
And that's where you
So
got
they
the call.
formed a board, and now this was all done before I got hired. And they formed a board. They raised money.
They started
bought
in
a
like
land.
2004, something like that. Their upper school.
Yeah, maybe you've done the research. I'd
something
have
like
to do
that.
the
And
math.
then,
yes,
then you came.
And then I
4
came
years
the
later.
first. They started it off-site, and they started with a freshman and sophomore class, and then they moved to a freshman, sophomore, junior class, and then I came. Kendall and I came. My wife, the year of the first graduating class.
Okay.
And so we were a part of that.
So that would that would kind of explain why they really hadn't had a tremendous amount of athletic success.
They
Or
were
any.
so small, one,
Yeah, they're small and
and they
brand new.
didn't even have 4 grades until I got there.
Did you know much about Chatsworth?
No,
You didn't know anything about it?
because they didn't tell me everything in the interview. They weren't as bad as some schools, but no, they didn't tell me. I found out about Chatsworth, but we'll talk about that later.
Did you find out about the Spawn Ranch before you got there?
No, I knew nothing.
The Manson
I was
family
teaching
have
a
been
PE. I was teaching
holding
a
up.
PE class, and look up. I was teaching with John Ellinghouse at a park where they filmed the Bad News Bears down at Chatsworth Park, and we're looking up, and I look up and go, "House, what the hell's going on over there?" And they were filming. They were filming the.
Oh yeah, all kinds. Yeah, it's no doubt. And also, you can't overlook Spawn Ranch and the Manson family. I mean, you walked right into it.
I know where that is. That's up in the hills, but
some
I've
fun
not
stuff.
checked that. I've not checked that out. So we have a lot of stuff in Chatsworth.
So it's a relatively big jump considering, in terms of like taking on as an athletic director, because now you got to hire all your new coaches and you're going. I mean, you got to
but we
create
were
a new
so
culture,
small.
right?
That's why when John has been with me. John Ellinghouse, our head football coach, you know him well.
Great coach.
Has been with me from the beginning. But we started so small. We had like 265 kids in our first. So it wasn't that. We were just trying to get kids and then we didn't have any facilities. So I had to make relationships. I had to
I know
become.
that drill.
And you have to know somebody at this park, and you have to know somebody at this gym, and but that's my strength is.
Yeah.
It goes back. You talked about in the very beginning about calling people, but all it takes is effort. It's not you don't have to be smart. You
Right.
just have to try.
You have to
And
try.
if you'll build relationships with people and treat people well over a period of time, people want to do business with people they enjoy working with.
Besides finding places for your teams to play, what did you see as your first orders of business? Like what is it you wanted to get going with?
You will. When I say this, you will just laugh. But I had to basically convince people that we were real, that we were. You could count on us. I remember taking Kirk
you'll
West,
show up.
who's an assigner up there, that because we had not done it. We had not been consistent. We have not. We said we'd do something, we wouldn't follow up on it. So just to convince somebody that we're legitimate. Look, I'm here. I'm running it the right way. I know how to do things, and you just watch. You will see that we will.
Yeah, that's funny.
We'll be a different school than what you knew before I got here.
There.
Yeah.
I remember going to my first Gold Conference meeting or something, and other schools were used to answering for Archer. And I finally had to go, I'm here. I'm sitting at the table. They're like, oh, yeah, okay.
No.
And I just remember no, actually, that guy might know what he's doing.
No.
So your daughter, Jordan, good volleyball player. Was she in middle school at this time, or she just got to
when
high
we
school?
started, and by the way, I have 4 kids. I have an older one, Samantha,
that
was
attended.
at Hockaday,
Oh, I see.
and so she didn't come out with us.
Okay.
And she now lives in New York City. When I told you I'm going up to New York next week, I'll see her.
Mm-hmm.
She stayed in Dallas, graduated from Hockaday, went to Yale, and now works in the city. It's in social media. Don't ask me a whole lot more after that.
But I would imagine I had a similar experience with my daughter.
We both watched our
when I
daughters
came there
play.
and really wanted to ramp up every sport, but I knew volleyball was the first one out of the gate, so we wanted to get going in that direction.
But she was a baby. I mean, she started when she was in 2nd grade, so I had some years to kind of get it
to
going.
build that up.
And but you know how it is with the club game in California. But I had to learn it. Texas and what I had been doing, I wasn't aware of all the club stuff, and you have to learn your environment and learn how the rules that California does. That's what John was so helpful of kind of saying, well, this is how it's done in California, and this is. It's just different. And I think the key to our success has been the nuances of California.
So talk a little bit about that, because you talked about, bringing Texas to California.
Correct.
But you needed to learn the California way.
For example, in my school in Texas, we would not have been able to play all the public schools. So had that nuance not been there, we would not have been able to grow Sierra Canyon like we've done. So having the best of both worlds, we're able to have the best education and also play in the best league. What hamstrung me at St. Mark's in Dallas was I had this great education, but the teams I was playing, they were fine, but I couldn't get the best players because they didn't want to play in this league.
And correct me if I'm wrong, the public schools are the top athletic schools
Correct.
in
They
Texas.
have the best facilities.
And the two never meet, public and private?
You can play preseason games, but you're not in the same league. Well, we call them districts.
And you're not in the same playoffs.
You're not in the districts, different playoffs. So you're a second-class citizen athletically. So without that piece in California, we don't have this rise.
Denny never knows when to go to commercial. So here it is.
Vámonos a Casablanca. Vámonos a Casablanca.
Casablanca is a proud sponsor of Sports Stories with Denny Lennon. Marley, do you know where Casablanca is?
Totally know where it is. It's on the corner of Lincoln and Rose in Venice, California.
That's where the restaurant is, but it's like a place in the world. It's in North Africa. Nothing? Did you? It's a movie. Did you know it's a movie?
No, it's a brunch place.
Ingrid Bergman?
The tortilla lady?
Humphrey Bogart?
The margarita man?
Ooh, wow. So head on into Casablanca, the restaurant, and mention Sports Stories with Denny Lennon to either Carlos Sr. or Carlos Jr. and get a free dessert. Casablanca and Sports Stories, this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Vámonos a Casablanca. La comida para la familia. Vámonos a Casablanca. Vámonos a Casablanca.
Now back to our Sports Stories interview with Brock Pillsbury, the athletic director at Sierra Canyon School.
And when you came, you mentioned learning how the club system, but then also learning the public and private could be melded together.
I was like, yeah, it's
This
fantastic.
is interesting
Because
and then boundaries. You're not at a private school in California.
now, but when we started, we had
that's
size boundaries. Remember, we were all based
Right.
on enrollment. And
That's
then
right.
that's the second piece that changed to our benefit is they got rid of the enrollment.
They went to the competitive
competitive equity, which is fantastic because if you're good, you get to go play the best.
Right.
And so now we have the best school, and then we can get the best. The players can play the best people. So you're gonna get.
So to explain to some people who
Don't understand
the
it.
competitive equity formula basically evaluates you over your previous 2 years, and it's not unlike the college football.
It's a ranking
that
it's through Max Preps. You can
there's
look
an
at yourself,
algorithm,
but
and then you rise.
It basically,
Or
to be
fall.
clear, you can lose to a team and still rack up points. You don't have to beat
Correct.
a team. So as long as you're playing good competition, in essence, you could lose a game against a good school for, like, let's say Westlake, a big public school, versus beating a school. I will not name a small school that doesn't win a whole lot. You actually rack up more points, so you move up the food chain by losing a game.
And by moving up, you start to attract better and better athletes.
Because the better athletes want to play against the best people.
One of the things I noticed, and it's just astounding, but really it starts right when you get there in your, 13 years?
This is
there.
my 13th year.
12 state championships and like 14 Southern Section titles. Like, that's nutty.
Yeah.
That's a lot of success.
Yes.
That's crazy.
It is.
It's astounding.
But you know this business. You just go day by day, and you try
Yeah,
to make.
sure.
You try to.
Except your days start with ordering rings for your championship team.
I've got a box of rings that obviously I'm real proud of, and my kids will divvy them up someday. But that's not what you work for. The memories of
course.
That's
kids. That's what the guys that always win 14 championships.
Yeah, I guess so.
That's astounding. That much success, because it's one thing to win your league. Make playoffs.
The first few were on the old system where you would win Division 5 in basketball or 4 in basketball. I got a couple of the volleyball, but you know how it is. A couple of volleyball ones early on, Division 5s that got away from me. So we could have had more. But you remember the ones that get away from you, not the ones you win.
When did it start? Because the education's always been solid, and they're definitely, that was known about Sierra Canyon. But when did you start to attract these higher level athletes, and also you've become known, for better or for worse, maybe both, as a kind of a celebrity kids school, and I think that's more has to do with accelerated professional athletes. But how did that whole how did that turn?
You'd probably have to come out to check it out, but we're outside of West LA and the craziness.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little more easygoing. You know,
Property
we don't make a
values
big deal.
more affordable.
I'm sorry.
Property values, not like West Los Angeles.
But we draw people from that don't live right near Chatsworth. So, but we treat people. We kind of just have like we've been there before.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have stars, but we don't treat it. We don't just go crazy. And I think they like it. And I think they like the fact that we're not just an uppity school. That we draw from, 80 different zip codes. We have people from Simi because of our location. We get people from up in Valencia, from Simi, from Pasadena. We draw from all over because we're right off the freeway, and we're socioeconomically, racially, we are diverse.
Yeah, you're like 48%, 50% kids of color. What's the buses they go as far?
We have buses. Well, we're not as crazy as some, but we have buses that pick up from different locations, so we offer that. But when you go there, we look like California.
Or like Metro Los Angeles.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
a lot of private schools don't look that way. They're lily white, and that's not what we are. It's not what we believe in, and it's not just racially. It's also economically. We believe that we give aid to people that if they can't afford to pay the full freight, we'll still try to help you if you're a fantastic kid, and we can extrapolate that you're going to add value to the school through the arts or through athletics.
Yeah,
and then
you're
going to
take part in the community.
Yeah, and that the parents value education. We'll help them out.
One thing I might have not been clear about is your those championships I mentioned. They're spread out over both genders and multiple sports. It's not like you put more.
That up.
You don't put more resources necessarily. You give what you have.
You could make the argument that our girls' sports are better than our boys.
You could.
Because we cross multiple fall, winter, and spring. Our volleyball team, is top 4
always in the mix.
Last year, top 4 in the southern section, top 20 in the state, or probably top 10 in the state. Our girls basketball has been great. Our girls soccer's won several regional championships because that's the farthest you can win. And then our softball program has been very good. It grew over time, has been very good. So we're not all about football and basketball.
Like colleges are.
And we're damn good in those. Don't get me wrong.
You're very good in those.
Yeah.
What's the so there's an interesting these set of circumstances that have led to a situation like what's going on in football with Mater Dei and St. John Bosco, where the 7-on-7 youth leagues have developed, the busing lines are far enough, the resources, and so it's very difficult to get over the top of one of those two teams this year, maybe the last 2 years in football. And then some would say the same exists in basketball to some level. You tell me, what have you seen from inside your office?
I can't really comment on Bosco and Mater Dei in football. I'm busy enough. We're in my own football. I don't worry about them. But I do think there's definitely a phenomena of kids grouping themselves, of wanting to play in a group, which I believe all started back when LeBron, interestingly enough, went to Miami. Once he showed
that idea.
People that, hey, the players can control this. You're not at the mercy of the owners anymore. That you can control your fate. If you want to play with a couple of your friends, work it out. And then I think that has then happened in college and then down in high school. So I think you're seeing when you're talking about those two football schools. By the way, we're hoping we'll sneak up in that area at some point in time.
Have you been in the Open Division playoffs for football yet?
No, we were the number.
But you won D1 this year, didn't you?
We were the number 9 seed basically this year and fell in D1. We were the number 1 seed in D1 and won it.
Heck yeah.
But odds are next year we'll be up in the Open Division.
In the Open.
Yeah.
Now in basketball, boys basketball, in the past you've had, I can name an all-star team of NBA players whose children came through there. And then this year with LeBron's son and D. Wade's son, there's this phenomena of social media that's happened with your team. And that has probably led to you taking on a very ambitious national schedule where you're going to be on. Your boys are on national television more than some NBA franchises.
Yeah, I think Minnesota was cute about it. They commented that Sierra Canyon's on more than we are.
So how did it just get that? To me, I'm from the days out, especially out here. I'm sure you might have been Street and Smith. It was a magazine, and you got that magazine, and they tried to profile the top players, and you'd look for in your area, and then you would go to that high school, and you go, so what number is so and so, and that's about our social media game.
Yeah, it's way different, and I don't understand it all. But I would say once you get to an elite level in basketball, in order to get competition, you have to travel. And it's the same way in club volleyball, and you know that you have when you have this elite team, it's hard to get enough games locally that will test you. So for us to win a state championship, which is our goal, a sectional championship or a state championship, you've got to have some tests. And so we've chosen that to hit the road and go get some good competition. And that's how we're going to, metal makes metal, metal on metal makes you stronger.
How many miles is your team going to put on this year? But I mean, you've been to Massachusetts.
We've been to Massachusetts, Minnesota, Dallas. I'm going to New York next week.
With the team.
Yeah. So
how
the girls are traveling, but you're mentioning boys. I also don't want to.
No,
the girls are fantastic. We were last year with the first team to ever win the Open Division Championship in both boys and girls in the state of California. Yep. Our girls are going to New York with us. The girls went to Dallas with us. So it's not, How
do they do on the travel? That's got to be tough. I mean, they're younger, so they're going to bounce back quicker. But they're also got to be using a day here and there. But
they might as well get used to it. You mentioned to the SMU experience. If you want to do well in college, you've got to learn how to allocate your time, and we're giving them that opportunity to learn. That you've got to take care of it, and you've got to communicate with teachers before you leave. Email assignments in. If you want to be play the big time, or you want to play men's or women's college basketball, you got to learn how to take care of your stuff, and that's how we're doing it.
Who's the pushback coming from? Anybody? It's outside of your circle.
Sure,
because your parents are probably on board with this, or else they wouldn't have signed up.
I think parents, and one of the reasons I think kids come to our school is because we do play a national schedule.
That's right.
So it's kind of like the same reason why you see college football players all going to SEC, because you get to play the best. Yeah. And so people want to be a part of a school that plays a national schedule because you're going to go see the best teams in several different states and get a good game.
There's some push or restrictions the CIF, which is the governing body of high schools here, have put against competing against schools like IMG or Oak Hill. Can you explain that?
I'd have to. I may be wrong, but Montverde may be one of them. There's another one in Indiana, La Lumiere.
Okay.
But the reason is they're basically PG years. They're fifth-year seniors.
I see.
So they might have gone to another school, graduated, and now they're playing a fifth year, and they haven't started college yet. So the CIF just doesn't want to be playing on the same court as a fifth-year person. They have nothing against the fifth-year players, but they don't want us, our section, playing them. So they just restrict that.
Do you think that keeps
Findlay Prep's another one that has fifth years.
Prep. Does that keep you from being considered for what would be a mythical national championship?
They have. If you look at USA Today, they have two categories.
They do. Okay.
One that includes the PG schools, and then one that doesn't.
And then one that doesn't. Wow. Okay.
And I don't care about mythical championships.
Right. Well, but on some level, that's kind of like how college football used to be.
Yes, they had the AP and the UPI.
They would have these polls, and you would claim that national championship. And before high school teams would travel to meet one another, that's the only way that you could do the rankings. And you
still don't get to do a postseason. They used to be the Dicks and up in Madison Square Garden, but California's not allowed to travel there.
Wow. Tell me about some of the extra. Tell me how your job has changed when you have high-profile people both coming to your game and then, of course, even playing for your school. Like, you probably have to take on all kinds of security measures that you wouldn't normally have to.
We kind of stepped it up a little bit probably several years ago where, we started having police officers and then more police officers at some games. And we have a group of men and women that come, and they're from our area. They're from the Chatsworth Division, so it's great to support them. We pay them, so that helps. We also have our own security guards. We're just much more cognizant of it. This year we're doing bag checks. So we're notifying everybody prior to the game that as you be prepared, you're gonna have a bag check.
Do you have like separate entrances for if like LeBron or Dwayne Wade's coming to a game or something like that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we have it's not necessarily a VIP, but we have a media entrance, and anybody we have courtside seats. You went to the Windward game. We have courtside seats, so they come in one area, and then anybody that has a ticket just comes in a regular area. That's one thing different this year. We pre-sold our boys basketball games, so they were all pre-sold online. I'll throw a plug for GoFan, gofan.co, and we did. They did great for us. So basically, if you wanted to come to the game, we sent an email out and to our board and our parents and our players' parents, and just said, "Hey, buy your tickets.
Buy it now." How did this line up, or do you collaborate with any other athletic directors in any other part of the country that also have, in effect, high-profile teams? I would imagine those would be in big urban areas, Chicago, New York.
No, the only thing I really did,
because you guys seem to have a concentration of high-profile players.
But the high-profile players come here because they're friends with somebody, like the Kardashians. The Pippins knew the Kardashians, and so that's how the Pippins got here. So it's like any good restaurant, bar, movie. It's all word of mouth, and once that's the most powerful thing. And once you get a good word of mouth going, and that goes back to not just me. That goes back to the elementary school, to the teachers, to the assistant teachers, to the lower school direct. That they run a great lower school and then we run a great camp during the summer. You mentioned the camp. So the camp feeds the school, and the school does well, and then they come to the middle school and the upper school. And, I mean, it's just it all feeds on itself.
What do you see as, in effect, kind of where might this be going? Like, where do we go beyond this? We're at this point, it seems like, especially with how many outlets, Baller TV, let alone all the social media platforms, all of these that allow for all of this exposure. Is it going to come to a point where a school has its own network, a high school? Right? Is it going to come? Like, is it going to? If you're looking up top, right? Every pro NBA team, in effect, has a contract with a regional network, and then they play on national TV. Do you see any of this coming?
I don't think so. I think
there's a lot of interest.
And it can go away just as quickly as it came too. You know how it is in our business. You work to get there, and then you try to fight to stay there.
Right.
But any sport can, you can have some dissension. You have some kids leave. But we've been lucky, knock on wood, that hasn't happened. But I don't, from a social media standpoint, I think we're at maturation. I mean, we're there. I know I can't imagine it, but I could be wrong.
Yeah,
I could be wrong. But the own network, no, I don't think so.
What I'm going to ask you some fun questions.
Sure.
Some questions. Who's the best opposing player you've seen in any sport? Not at your school. Somebody impressed you, sticks out.
It's still in my career. I still go back to Ricky Pierce in Dallas for the Garland Owls.
Okay,
but he was the best basketball. We had Billy Allen and they had Ricky Pierce. It's the greatest basketball game I've ever seen.
Love it. I love.
Remember Ricky Pierce played for the Detroit Pistons?
Absolutely.
Played for Baylor and Detroit.
Sure.
He was the best.
He was the best. Mine. I always loved Leon Wood. I don't know if you remember that name.
No, I remember. He got drafted by the Mavericks, I believe.
Yeah, he set the California state record in the 3-point line. If it would have existed, he would have put it out. He was an NBA ref for a long time.
Yeah.
But he was good. Okay. Best teammate on a Sierra Canyon team. So, I'm not asking you your best athlete, but who exemplifies what you look for in a teammate?
Remy Martin.
Okay. I remember watching.
Partly he's just killing it at Arizona State. Partly because he's probably a point guard, but just the way he played is how hard he played. He picked other kids up. He was fantastic.
Nice. What's memorable comeback that you've been sitting?
Football. It still is the greatest game we Ellinghaus disagrees, but we we've had some great ones, but we came from behind and beat Campbell Hall, which to me set the table where we moved up a notch. But we've had some great ones.
What most memorable win?
Oh, there's just so many. I mean, I'd say the last one.
That's what I'm remembering.
To me, I just want to win every one. But as I said before, I think you remember the losses more than the wins.
Yeah.
But to me, the football when we beat Campbell Hall and then we later won in the playoffs and won down at the Staples Center, that was fun. But it's just been a joy. That's been to build something from scratch to something has just been a joy. But it's a day to day. It's not, you can't focus on big pictures. I never had a dream of this, of being really excellent in multiple sports.
State titles. Okay, how about this? Parent involvement story, and you can hide the names. I got some fun ones. I put them all in one folder so that someday I'm going to do a shtick.
I actually try to mentor coaches to not just shut it down. I'll tell you a story. The kid's name is Scott Head in Dallas, Texas. The dad asked if he could talk to me. And I'm never scared of the parents. I'll talk to the parents. I just don't want to do it right after the game, but I'll talk to them. And he made a point. He said, Rock, my kid's the 7th or 8th player. You're playing the starters, and then when you've kind of got the game in hand, you start subbing, and then you sub from the back end of the bench. And that my kid, if you're 7 or 8, you don't really get the starter minutes. You don't get the back end of the minutes. And he made a point. I mean, if you're too stubborn. You know how when someone's talking to you and you just don't listen? But I encourage coaches to try listen a little bit. These are smart men and women.
Right.
They may be doctors, lawyers. They're not idiots.
Yeah, I think the knee-jerk reaction of coaches is
to shut down.
Is you're wrong.
Correct.
And they may be a little bit right.
They may be a little bit right. And if you just even will listen to them, and I think I think one of the keys to my success is that, I mean, if I give you my business card, my cell phone's on there.
Yeah.
I'm not scared of someone calling me. I don't have to answer. I go to bed at 9 o'clock, and I don't answer after 9 o'clock. If you just talk to them and just let them be heard, sometimes that'll take care of it. And by listening to them, truly listening and asking them questions, well, what do you mean by that? I think you can solve a lot.
That's interesting. My rule with my coaches was that they could only have just polite conversation with parents. The second that it entered that, the parent would have to come to me as an athletic director. And my first point to the parent was, you're not at practice, and I'm not at practice. So let's just remember that. So let me go to the coach, and I'll find out. And then I come back and give them what the coach couldn't. I could speak plainly about where they went. And then you would listen, and you go, okay, not bad. And I've always felt like that made our coaches a little bit better.
But I also think that the piece that I've tried to do, and it's getting harder and harder, but I do go to practices. I leave my office and kind of do the rounds, and I do go to watch. Yesterday I went to a little baseball. They were taking pictures, so I moved down to the lower school, and I learned something. I realized that we had a beach volleyball practice that day, which then made me like, oh, have I signed up yet? And when's the day? So to me, it's like running a bar or a restaurant. You've got to get out. You can't just stay behind there. You got to walk out, say hello to parents, watch practices, and if your coach is being a jerk, he or she's probably being a jerk at practice as well as the game. So you can't just go to the game.
It's nice to have your teams on your campus these days, isn't it?
Boy. But even then, I would get in the car and drive to Powerhouse and then drive.
The same, and it was.
That would be volleyball practice, and I'd drive to Chatsworth. Our football team practiced on the softball field at Chatsworth. I still got out and made the rounds, and so to me, I feel like I've got to work till 2, and then try to get out for practices at 3:30.
Something you're so close to, which is this whole idea of the overuse syndrome, where athletes are going year-round and not really giving their bodies a chance to recover. How do you approach that?
The problem is it's not just a high school problem.
No, it's not.
It's we have 10-year-olds. 10-year-olds playing 3 baseball games a day or 5 basketball games, and it's not just boys, it's girls. And the parents don't know that they're overusing them, and then you're fatiguing them. You don't want to burn them out. You don't want them quitting their sophomore year in high school.
Yeah, we're seeing that in all kinds of sports. But they'll go 5 days of playing multiple days of volley, beach volleyball, which can be grueling, and then on their one day off, they'll take a private that their parents put them in, and
it gets so competitive between the parents because I don't want your daughter making it to the top team when my daughter. It's just silly, and you get competitive moms and dads who have money and they're willing to spend for lessons, and like sometimes just a day of rest is way better.
It's the best thing.
Yeah.
Do you find it easier? In effect, your high level parents that play professionally, that they get the big picture with where their child is coming up the ranks?
You're going to be surprised, but the high-level parents, I don't talk to them. They know better.
Yeah. No, I know I get it. They were always
now
the ones that play
they
either
may
college
talk
or
to
pro.
their kids
Sure.
when they may be pushing it and, maybe they're trying to say something to them during the game or on the ride home or something like that. But they don't mess with me. It's usually the moms and dads who what I call the first generation that they don't really know. They didn't play sports themselves. Now they have this kid who's into sports, and they just don't really know. So they start making bad decisions.
It's their journey.
Yeah, and I offer I go speak to our student body at the Parents Association, and I say, look, take me up on it. Come see me any morning. Get a cup of coffee. We'll walk around. I'll teach you not only what I've learned from 31 years of doing this, but also I've had 4 kids who've gone through baseball, softball, football, and all the nuances and what you should think about.
You ready for some rapid fire?
Sure.
First pet.
I never had one.
Whoa.
No.
Okay.
I really didn't. My grandparents had one, but I've never had a pet.
First car.
I have one now, unfortunately.
What's your pet now?
I call him the rat, but he's a dog. But guess who walks him every night?
I think yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
First car.
74 Pontiac Brown.
Oh, sick. Favorite sports team as a kid?
It had to be the probably the proper answer is the Dallas Cowboys, but I would say whatever was up next. You remember growing up, you went from football season to basketball season to baseball and then back. So whatever was up.
You had a nickname as a kid?
With a name like Rock, you don't need a nickname.
Favorite board game?
I don't know, probably backgammon.
Nice.
Yeah,
we're big.
You all did that.
There's 3 of them right over there. We have tournament like Super Bowl Sunday. I'll have 20 people over here. We'll go into full
in
brackets.
high school. We would have games and play, and then
Love it.
whoever lost was out, and have 3.
I used to write a whole with all my friends. I used to write a whole. It was called the Party Room Gazette, and I would write articles about who could play and who couldn't. And
that's a fun game. I hate the doubling. I hate the fact that doubles counted what they do. I think it shouldn't be that way.
Your favorite main dish?
My right now is chicken piccata on a little bed of spaghetti, lots of olive oil and lemon.
Ooh, wow.
Hungry right now.
Favorite dessert?
Cheesecake with strawberries.
Favorite movie?
Cool Hand Luke.
Oh, it's nice.
I have a boy named Luke as well.
Okay.
I have a boy named after my favorite movie, and my other boy named after my favorite bar, Jake's in Austin, Texas.
Okay, good. All right. I like Cool Hand Luke. That's good. Favorite musical group?
I'm not much of a musician. Probably Willie Nelson. I don't know.
Okay.
Probably anything country.
You got a favorite author?
Herman Wouk.
Yeah.
He, I'm blanking on the name of it, but War and Remembrance, War. I loved it. I've read it a couple times.
Favorite professional athlete?
It's changed. At being 58, I've had him over the years. When I was younger, it was probably Roger Staubach. But to me, anybody that works hard at something, I feel like that it just didn't come naturally to them. That's who I like.
Staubach, I always remembered because didn't he lead the college all-stars to defeat
the only time the pros?
It was like but
it was an all-star
year.
I remember that. I mean, I don't think the pros were trying very hard.
It's a nice thing to have tagged onto your resume.
Yep.
Where'd you meet your wife?
At a wedding. Yeah,
And
one of my assistant coach, assistant coach at St. Mark's was getting married, and met her at a wedding.
What was your first date?
In Austin.
Jake's?
No. we went. I couldn't. It was one of her favorite spots, which is always a good idea.
Good,
Where do you
man.
want to go?
Smart man. You have a favorite word?
Never thought of it that way. No.
How about a favorite quote?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm trying to work on my Spanish, so I have some of the Spanish words. I like the way they sound. Tecolote
Okay.
means owl. So
Nice. Okay, good. I could get an interpreter come in. But favorite quote?
it changes.
Yeah.
I put them up. But the most recent one, I may have to get my phone out, but the most recent one is, let's see if I can say it correctly. Your enemy is your enemy's enemy is my best friend.
We are at Sports Stories, the show of record of 80s television, which we celebrate. So you get to take a quiz, and I'm going to give you 3 great 80s shows.
Interesting.
And
Thought
then-
this was about sports.
It was, but we cross over into historical and social culture. So you could choose from the Waltons, right?
Didn't watch it. That was always
Darn.
on right after football games, and I had to do my homework.
The White Shadow,
Didn't watch it.
solid.
You're messing with the wrong. I'm not.
Magnum PI.
All right. I should have given you my choices. Were Hogan's Heroes, Lone Ranger.
Okay, give me just pick one.
Um.
I'll make them easy for you.
All right. Magnum PI.
That's good choice. CBS, 1988, multiple awards. All right. So he's a private investigator living in Hawaii, right? But he did military time. You know what war he served in?
Korea.
Vietnam.
Okay.
Okay. You know what branch of the military is?
Helicopter. She's trying to help me, but that's all right. I can't read lips.
It was Navy, so don't go to her. And what sports did he play at the Naval Academy?
My guess is for you to like it, volleyball.
Basketball.
All right. So I told you I didn't
And
know.
football.
All right.
That's all right. You're not the first guy to strike out on the quiz. Rock, crazy amount of success, but sometimes the focus is on those championships, and rightfully so. But I know you, and I know you put as much effort into your middle schoolers, into both genders, into making the experience strong for your weakest player all the way to your strongest player, and that's to be admired. It's
Well, I
it's a
appreciate
great program you got
Thank
going.
you for noticing that. It's hard to do that
Mm-hmm.
because it's tempting to just focus on the ones you're doing well on.
Mm-hmm.
But, we would never be great in all the sports if we didn't focus on the ones we weren't good on.
That's right. Congratulations, buddy.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you for
Appreciate
coming on.
it. Thanks you for inviting me.
Right on.
You bet.
Coming up next week on Sports Stories with Denny Lennon.
Wait a minute. We should cover some ground. I'm pushing out a blog.
Oh, yeah, I make you write that every Tuesday and Friday.
That is the plan, and it's available on our podcast. On our website, right?
It is sportsstoriespodcast.com. Click on the blog link, and you can read all of Denny's blogs.
And what have you been putting on Facebook lately and Instagram?
A lot of stuff's on Facebook and Instagram. A lot of our archives are on there. But also, we have something fun coming up this Friday.
Why don't we go Facebook Live Friday? We don't know the time quite yet, but you'll get the notification, and we'll do a preview of what's coming up the next week on our show.
Great idea, Denny. I think that was actually my idea, but thanks for stealing it.
No problem.
Facebook
What'd I do?
Live Friday. We'll be going live, and we will give you all the information on our upcoming next Thursday's show.
Make sure you stay tuned to the end of the podcast because we always have some surprise endings.
We do. Stay tuned. We'll see you next week, guys.
Now it's time for an installment of As Time Goes By, where we get to know Carlos Haro Jr. of Casablanca Restaurant in Venice 1 minute at a time. Remember, if you mention Sports Stories with Denny Lennon to either Carlos Sr. or Carlos Jr. while you dine at Casablanca, you get a free dessert. Now, let's play it again with Carlos Jr. So, Carlos, tell me about your role at the restaurant. I know you manage the catering department, but give me a little bit of insight on that.
So, kind of like we started catering about 20 years ago, and the way it started is my sister was going to UCLA. She calls my dad and said, "Can you bring 20 burritos to UCLA?" And he's like, "Yeah, I could do that." Gets there, they go, "What? Who made these burritos?" "Oh, my dad." He goes, "Can we order for every week, like a standing order?" And literally, that's how my dad's catering business started. It started from just giving my sister 20 burritos. He always says, if I didn't go and gave those burritos, we would not be working at UCLA. So basically, that's what I do. I manage more of the catering aspect of it. So there was the restaurant and catering. And being like my dad's always been innovative, he's always trying to figure out, I don't want to open another restaurant, but I want to have another avenue. So catering became something he started doing. And I think my dad, that's the part he enjoyed more because he met so many people through catering.
Yeah.
He's like, he knew, I remember he telling me one day he came home, he's like, they're going to open a place, a big stadium in downtown, and it's going to be the Quarter. And I'm like, how do you know this? Oh, I just went to the meeting, and I just saw what the stadium will look like, and they're going to have movie theaters, and we're all like, this is downtown. Like, yeah, nobody's going to go, Dad. This is, and he goes, I'm telling you, I saw it. It looks great. And he got to meet so many people because he was always, like he said, the fly on the wall, serving the food. But he said he ended up meeting so many people through catering that I think that was his real, like, joy about it. Not so much the serving, but the actual fact that you could enter so many doors and so many windows through that.
Sports Stories with Denny Lennon is supported by the AAU. Find a local event and join at aausports.org. And remember, you can catch your favorite amateur sports live stream, replays, and highlights at ballertv.com. Sports Stories, along with East Bay, supports the Heroes Movement, a nonprofit that bridges the gap from mental or physical therapy to getting strong again through strength and conditioning workouts. This free service is available for any veteran of the United States Armed Forces. Visit heroesmovementusa.org for more information. Sports Stories with Denny Lennon is a production of Sports Stories, Inc. and is available on Apple Podcasts and YouTube or wherever you listen and watch. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and give us a review. It really helps spread the word. You can find all our social media links, archives, and other info on our website at sportstoriespodcast.com. Special thanks to the John R. Wooden Course and Wooden's Wisdom. Original music for Sports Stories is courtesy of Lennon Music Productions. Original images by Sienna Lennon Photography. Sports Stories is produced by Marley Rice, edited by Bob McCall, and researched by Teresa Dolan. Additional staff include Christine Jimbo, Jake Downey, Ray Castro, and Buck Magic Lennon.
Go watch Sports Stories with Denny Lennon. I know you are, but what am I? A little French fry.
Check it out, Buck.